Sometimes, the deepest pain in life comes not from what we never had, but from what we lost. You loved something, or someone, so deeply, and then one day, it was gone. Maybe it was a relationship, a dream, a friend, a job, or a version of yourself that no longer exists. And you ask, God, why did you let me lose what I loved? It's a question that shakes your faith. It makes you wonder if God really cares. Because if He's all-powerful, He could have stopped it. He could have let you keep what you loved. But sometimes, the greatest act of God's love is allowing something to be taken, not to hurt you, but to heal you. God doesn't remove what you love to punish you. He removes it to protect you, to prepare you, and to position you for something greater. What you think is loss might actually be divine redirection. When God takes something from you, it's not rejection, it's redirection. You may not see it now, but one day you'll look back and thank Him for the things He didn't let stay. Because if they had stayed, they would have broken you. You loved it because it gave you comfort. You held on to it because it made you feel safe. But God knew it was slowly keeping you from growing. He saw what you couldn't see, that it was holding you back from who you're meant to become. Sometimes God has to break your heart to build your faith. You think losing that person, that dream, or that plan destroyed you, but it was actually the moment God started reshaping you. You see, you can't walk into the new season God has for you while you're still clinging to the last one. God can't fill your hands with His promises if you refuse to let go of what's already there. When you lost what you loved, you thought it was the end. But God was just making space for something better. You cried. You begged for it to come back. You couldn't understand why He stayed silent. But silence doesn't mean absence. God's silence often means He's working. He was rearranging your life behind the scenes, preparing blessings that required your hands to be empty first. You prayed, God, please don't take this away. And He whispered, trust me. What I have for you is greater. But you couldn't hear Him through your pain. That pain, it wasn't meant to destroy you. It was meant to awaken you. Because if you had never lost what you loved, you would have never found what you truly need, Him. We love things that feel good, but God removes things that aren't good for us. Sometimes what you love is the very thing keeping you from your purpose. That's why He let it go. Think of Abraham. God asked him to sacrifice his son Isaac, the one he loved most. It made no sense. But that moment wasn't about loss, it was about trust. God wanted to see if Abraham loved the gift more than the giver. And when Abraham chose obedience over comfort, God provided something better, a ram in the thicket. When you lose what you love, it reveals who you trust. Do you trust the feeling? Or the Father? You see, God will sometimes remove what you think you can't live without, just to show you that He is the one you can't live without. It hurts when He takes something you built your life around. But maybe that thing became your idol. Maybe you started depending on it more than on God. And He loves you too much to let anything take His place in your heart. Every loss carries a lesson. Every heartbreak hides a purpose. God never wastes pain. Every tear you've cried is watering the soil of your next season. Maybe you lost that relationship because God saw how much it was costing you. You were losing yourself trying to keep them. You were shrinking your light to fit their shadow. And God said, enough. Maybe that job ended because you were too comfortable. You stopped growing. You stopped believing there was more. And God had to push you out of that place to move you into His promise. Maybe your dream failed because it was never meant to define you. God didn't say no to destroy your dream. He said no to remind you that your dream isn't your identity. He is. It's easy to thank God when He gives. But true faith thanks Him when He takes away. Because faith doesn't depend on what you have, it depends on who He is. When Job lost everything, his family, his wealth, his health, he still said, "The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." Job didn't understand, but he trusted. And in the end, God restored him double for his trouble. Because every time you lose something for God, He gives you back more than you can imagine. But here's the truth. Before God gives you something new, He often allows something old to die. Jesus said, Unless a seed falls into the ground and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it produces much fruit. That loss wasn't the end. It was a seed. It had to fall. It had to break. But soon, something beautiful will grow from it. You may not see it yet, but one day, the same thing that broke your heart will become the reason you praise Him. Because sometimes, losing what you loved is the only way to find what you were created for. You were asking God to bless your plans, but He was preparing to bless His plans for you. And His plans are always higher. His ways are always better. He took what you loved because He saw what you couldn't. He saw your future. He knew that holding on to that thing would keep you from holding on to Him. Maybe that's why the door closed. Maybe that's why they left. Maybe that's why the dream ended. Because God was protecting your destiny from what you thought you needed. It's not that God didn't want you to have joy. It's that He wanted to give you real joy. The kind that doesn't depend on people or things, but on His presence. Every time you lose something, remember this: nothing leaves your life that God cannot replace with something greater. When you lose what you love, don't focus on what left, focus on what's coming. Pain makes sense only when you look back from the place of promise. Right now you're in the process. It's dark. It's confusing. But God is still in control. You may think you lost everything, but you didn't lose God, and if you still have God, you still have everything. He's not just the God who gives, He's the God who restores. He can take your ashes and turn them into beauty. He can take your heartbreak and turn it into healing. He can take your loss and turn it into legacy. So don't curse the loss, let it change you. Let it soften you. Let it teach you how to trust again. You're not empty, you're being prepared. God often empties you before He fills you. He breaks you before He blesses you. He strips away what's temporary so you can receive what's eternal. You may not understand it now, but you will. Because God's plan always makes sense in reverse. Years from now, you'll look back and realize, what you thought was the end was actually the beginning. What you thought was loss was actually love. He let you lose what you loved, because He loved you more than what you lost. The breakup wasn't rejection, it was redirection. The closed door wasn't a curse, it was protection. The loss wasn't random, it was intentional. You are not being punished. You are being prepared. So stop asking, "Why did I lose it?" and start asking, "God, what are you teaching me through it?" Because every loss carries a hidden message from heaven. Sometimes God removes something before you can even understand why. Because if He waited for your permission, you'd never let it go. Letting go hurts, but holding on hurts worse. So release it. Release the anger, the confusion, the blame. You can't receive the next blessing if your hands are still holding yesterday's pain. Your loss doesn't define you, your response does. If you let the loss make you bitter, you'll stay stuck. But if you let it make you better, you'll see the beauty in it one day. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to trust the one who does. He's rewriting your story. What you thought was the last chapter was only a plot twist. The author isn't finished yet. You might have lost something you loved, but God is about to give you something that lasts. Something that can't be taken away. Because the things of this world are temporary, but His promises are eternal. And maybe, just maybe, you had to lose what you loved, so you could finally fall in love with the one who never leaves. That's why He let it go. Not to break you, but to bless you. Not to destroy you, but to deliver you. You will love again. You will dream again. You will rise again. Because what you lost doesn't compare to what's coming. God doesn't end things to leave you empty. He ends them to make room for more. So lift your head. Wipe your tears. The same God who allowed the loss is the same God who will restore you. You didn't lose, you were being led. Led away from what was good, toward what's God. And one day, when you look back, you'll realize, the thing you thought you couldn't live without was the very thing keeping you from truly living. So trust Him. Even when it hurts. Even when it doesn't make sense. Because His love is not proven by what He gives. It's proven by what He takes away and still promises to redeem. God let you lose what you loved, not because He wanted to take something from you, but because He wanted to give something to you, Himself. And that's the greatest gift of all. You see, what you call loss, heaven calls transition. You're not being buried, you're being planted. And when a seed goes into the ground, it looks like it's been lost, it looks like it's been covered, but what's really happening is transformation. God had to place you in a dark season so you could grow roots that would hold the weight of what's coming next. You thought it was over, but it was only hidden. God hides you before He reveals you. He isolates before He elevates. Because what's born too early can die too soon. So God lets some things end to mature your faith before He introduces your promise. Sometimes, God removes what you loved because He knew you loved it more than your purpose. And if He had let you keep it, you would have settled. You would have stayed in a comfort zone that looked like peace but was really prison. He had to break the illusion so He could reveal the truth. You were praying for peace, and He answered with loss. Because real peace doesn't come from what you hold, it comes from what you trust. And God was teaching you to trust Him with what you can't control. That's the lesson hidden inside the pain: surrender. Not the kind that gives up, but the kind that lets go. The kind that says, God, even if I never get it back, I still trust you. That's the faith that moves heaven. That's the faith that transforms loss into legacy. You may not see it now, but there's purpose in every tear. Every sleepless night, every unanswered prayer, every goodbye that you didn't see coming. It's all shaping you into the person you're called to become. You can't walk into destiny without walking through disappointment. You can't carry God's promise without learning to carry His presence. And sometimes His presence is most powerful in the silence after loss. Because silence is not absence, it's intimacy. God is closest when you feel most broken. He whispers when you're too weak to shout. He holds you when you can't hold yourself. He says, My child, I know it hurts. I know you don't understand. But if you could see what I see, you'd be thanking me instead of questioning me. You think you lost something precious, but God says, I'm about to show you what priceless really means. Every closed door has a divine fingerprint on it. Every person who walked away was part of a bigger plan. God knew that if they stayed, they would have distracted you from what He's preparing. So He removed them, not because you weren't enough, but because your future requires room to breathe. You can't carry people who don't want to grow. You can't keep things that were never meant to last. So God prunes your life, not to punish you, but to position you. When a gardener cuts branches, it looks cruel, but it's necessary. The branch doesn't know that the cutting is making space for fruit. And you, too, are being pruned, not destroyed. There are seasons where God says, You can't stay here. You can't keep loving what's no longer alive. Some things aren't dying, they're dead. And the longer you hold on, the more it drains you. So God lets it fade. He lets it slip through your fingers, not because He wants you empty, but because He wants your hands free. Free to receive what's coming. Free to walk into your calling. Free to love again, trust again, believe again. You will love again. You will smile again. Because God never ends with pain. He always ends with promise. But before He gives you the promise, He'll test your heart. Will you still worship when He takes something you love? Will you still praise Him when the plan doesn't make sense? True worship isn't about the music you sing when everything feels good. It's about the whisper of faith when your world is falling apart. God's greatest blessings often come wrapped in pain. His greatest promotions often follow the greatest losses. Joseph was betrayed by his brothers, sold as a slave, thrown into prison, all before he became ruler of Egypt. If he hadn't lost his family, he would have never reached his destiny. Ruth lost her husband, her home, her security, but through that loss, she met Boaz and became part of the lineage of Jesus. Every loss in the Bible led to a greater purpose. Because with God, loss is never final. It's always a setup for something divine. Maybe your heartbreak is the birthplace of your healing ministry. Maybe your disappointment is the soil for your greatest testimony. Maybe your tears are writing the story someone else will one day read and find hope, Indiana. Because God doesn't waste pain. Not one tear falls without purpose. He's writing redemption into your story, line by line, scar by scar. And I know it's hard to believe that when you're standing in the ashes. But ashes are where God begins. He takes what's broken, what's burned, what's ruined, and breathes life into it again. You may have lost the relationship, but you didn't lose the lesson. You may have lost the job, but you didn't lose the purpose. You may have lost people, but you didn't lose your calling. God's gifts are without repentance. That means even when things leave your life, your destiny remains untouched. You're still chosen. You're still anointed. You're still loved. The enemy wants you to believe that loss equals abandonment. But the truth is, loss often equals promotion. The battle you're facing is not proof that God left you. It's proof that He's preparing you. The enemy attacks what he fears. He fears your potential, your calling, your faith that refuses to die. You may feel broken, but you're not defeated. You're being built. You're being shaped. You're being refined by fire so that when your season of restoration comes, you'll be ready to carry it. God will never allow loss without a reason. Sometimes, He has to take away what you love so you can finally see who you are without it. Because who you are in the absence of things reveals what's truly in your heart. If you can still praise Him with empty hands, heaven notices. If you can still trust Him when you don't understand, hell trembles. Because faith that survives loss is faith that cannot be shaken. There's a certain strength that can only be built through breaking. There's a certain depth that can only be reached through pain. You're not weak for grieving. You're human. But don't confuse the season of weeping with a lifetime of defeat. The Bible says, "Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning." Your morning is coming. Your restoration is coming. God hasn't forgotten you. He's simply preparing the stage. Every time you thought it was over, He was just flipping the page. The enemy said you lost, but God says, "Watch what I do next." You thought losing that person meant losing your future. But your future was never attached to people, it's attached to purpose. God can use what left you to launch you. He can turn every goodbye into guidance. He can use every heartbreak as the hammer that shapes your destiny. One day, you'll stand on the mountain you used to pray from the valley to reach, and you'll realize, everything you lost was leading you here. You'll say, "Now I understand. Now I see why that door closed, why that person walked away, why that dream failed. It wasn't loss. It was alignment." God aligned you with destiny through the pain you tried to avoid. You were praying for a breakthrough, and He gave you a breakdown first, because sometimes what needs to break isn't around you, it's within you. Pride had to break. Control had to break. Fear had to break. Because God can't fill a vessel that's already full of self. He empties you to fill you. He breaks you to bless you. He takes to teach. When Jesus fed the 5,000, He first broke the bread, then He multiplied it. Whatever God breaks, He intends to multiply. So if He broke your heart, it's because He's about to expand it. If He broke your plans, it's because He's about to exceed them. You may not feel it, but heaven is closer than it's ever been. Angels are assigned to your restoration. And the same God who let it end will be the same God who starts something new, something better, something eternal. He never subtracts without the intention to add. You'll realize that what you lost wasn't love, it was attachment. True love doesn't chain you, it frees you. True love doesn't drain you, it grows you. And God's love is the truest of all, because it never leaves when everything else does. He's teaching you to love Him above all else. Because when you love Him first, every other love falls into its rightful place. He let you lose what you love to teach you how to love without losing yourself. You will see beauty again. You will smile without pretending. You will trust again without fear. Because the God who allowed the storm is the same God who calms it. Your story is not over. This chapter might be filled with pain, but the next one will be filled with purpose. You are being prepared for a season that will make sense of every tear you cried. When you finally receive what He's preparing, you'll whisper, "Now I understand why I had to lose it. Now I see why He said no. Now I see why it ended." And you'll thank Him, not for what He took, but for what he gave in return: peace, clarity, purpose, identity, and himself. Sometimes the greatest blessing God can give you is closure. Not because he wants to erase your past, but because he wants to free your future. Stop trying to reopen doors God has already closed. Stop chasing what God has already released. What's meant for you will never require you to beg. You don't have to chase what's chosen. You just have to trust the timing of the one who knows what's best for you. Because the same God who watched it leave already wrote the day it returns, or the day something better arrives. Your job is not to understand. Your job is to trust. Trust that God's plan is bigger than your pain. Trust that his no is protection. Trust that his silence is strategy. He's not punishing you. He's promoting you. He's not ignoring you. He's instructing you. Right now, he's whispering, "Hold on. I know it hurts, but I'm not done yet." You will not end in loss. You will end in light. You will not stay broken. You will be rebuilt. Because I am the God who restores. I am the God who gives beauty for ashes. I am the God who takes what was meant for evil and turns it for good. I am the God who let you lose what you loved so you could finally learn what love really is. And that's me. So don't fear the loss. Embrace the lesson. Don't resist the change. Receive the calling. You are not being punished. You are being prepared. You are not forgotten. You are being favored. The very thing that hurt you will soon be the thing that helps you. The wound will become the weapon. The pain will become the platform. Because the story doesn't end with what you lost. It ends with what God gives next. And when that day comes, you'll smile through the tears and say, "Now I see it. God didn't take it to leave me empty. He took it to make me whole. He let you lose what you loved so you could finally find what never leaves, his love. And that love, my friend, will never be lost again." And when you finally reach that place of peace, you'll realize that losing what you loved didn't break you, it built you. It taught you to breathe again without the weight you once carried. It showed you that your strength was never in what you held, but in who held you. God was never trying to take something from you. He was trying to take you somewhere new. He had to move you out of what was familiar so he could bring you into what was promised. You kept praying, "God, give it back." And he kept whispering, "If I give it back, you'll stay where you were. But I'm calling you higher." You thought you lost something beautiful, but God was protecting you from something broken. You thought it ended too soon, but he knew it ended right on time. Every goodbye was grace in disguise. Every closed door was mercy wearing mystery. He saw the conversations you never heard, the plans you never knew, the things that could have crushed your spirit. So he stepped in, not because he wanted to hurt you, but because he refused to lose you. And now, little by little, you're healing. The ache isn't as heavy. The nights aren't as long. And somewhere deep inside, your soul is learning that maybe, just maybe, everything you lost was part of everything you'll gain. Because God never ends with loss. He always ends with love. And one day soon, you'll look back and say, "Now I understand. I had to lose what I loved so I could become who I was meant to be." And in that moment of understanding, peace will finally settle where pain once lived. You'll stop asking, "Why?" and start saying, "Thank you." Because now you'll see that every tear was watering a promise. Every loss was shaping a lesson. Every empty space became the very place God chose to fill with his presence. You'll no longer chase what left, because you'll realize, what's meant for you will never have to be forced. You'll move differently. You'll trust deeper. You'll rest in the truth that God knows exactly what he's doing. And when new blessings start arriving, you'll smile through the tears, remembering how far you've come. You'll whisper, "If I hadn't lost that, I wouldn't have found this." That's the power of God's plan, turning endings into beginnings, turning heartbreak into healing, turning loss into love. Because nothing you lost was wasted. It all led you here, to a stronger faith, a softer heart, and a deeper relationship with the one who never leaves. And that's when you'll finally understand, you never really lost at all, you were just being led back to God.